All right. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Today is Tuesday, March 12th. This is the third meeting of our bicycle industry retail-focused e-bike safety and standards panel. The quarterly platform provides a chance for industry experts to meet, discuss, and address retailer risks, concerns, and best practices regarding lithium-ion batteries and e-mobility devices, safety standards, and compliance. Thank you to the panel members who have volunteered their time and expertise for today's discussion. A tremendous amount of energy has gone into making this platform a resource for not just retailers, but the industry at large. We truly believe that working united, the collective conversation will propel us towards continued growth in e-bike sales and participation with limited risk and safety for all. I thank the more than 25 panel members who continue to prioritize the time to help facilitate these conversations and do the excellent work that they do for our industry. Thank you so much. I also want to thank NBDA teammate Alicia Savage, who has done a lot of the legwork in prepping for today's call. Thank you, Alicia. If you're joining as a viewing participant, thank you. We have over 100 registered attendees today. It's great to see the participation grow and to see that this is a great resource for our industry. We welcome your participation by placing your questions in the chat function. Throughout the event, the panel members and myself will monitor that, and any questions that are asked will be answered live. Some questions, if we can't get to live, we'll address those back in the chat functions. So if you have questions, please feel free to put those in, and we'll make sure between myself and the panel members that we cover those. So co-moderating today's forum is industry expert, Mr. Jay Townley from Human Powered Solutions, who will kick our meeting off. Thanks, Jay.
Well, thank you, Heather. My purpose here is to make sure that you understand that the bicycle industry e-bike safety and standards panel is to create a safe and positive environment for our industry to become proactive relative to the situation and the opportunity that's been created by the growth of micromobility and the use of lithium-ion batteries for powered propulsion systems, and to review and update the proposed action items every quarter. The format, which is, by the way, open to suggestion and change, is constructed so everyone who wishes will be given the opportunity to share thoughts, ideas, suggestions within the allocated time specified by the moderator, Heather, for each question. Now, this is to be done without interruption. Everyone else is asked to listen in a respectful and not judgmental way with no negative reactions. Please direct all comments directly to the question or the issue, not the comments made by other participants. All discussions will be summarized, and proactive and constructive action items will be proposed for action by some or all of the attendees. The panel sessions will also be recorded, so participants and listeners can review the questions, the discussions, the suggestions, and the summary, and the resulting proposed proactive and constructive action items. Back to you, Heather.
Thanks, Jay. The continued growth of e-bikes for our industry is of integral importance. And so this forum is, as Jay said, a safe place so we can continue to explore and evolve how we continue to keep e-bikes at the top of the industry and leading the charge forward. I'm thankful to our industry suppliers and retailers who suggested the topics for today's conversation. The NBDA, we solicit these topics a month prior to each forum. And these topics have been presented today as top proposed for discussion. So without further ado, I will read the first topic for exploration, and the panel members who have volunteered to speak will have a chance. And then, as Jay said, we'll go to the submitted open attendee questions following. So here we go. The first topic today for exploration is e-bike industry's shift from lithium-ion. And this question was submitted by Dawn Miller, Senior Advisor of New York City's Chief Climate Officer. So companies are sharing that they are creating batteries that are less flammable than lithium-ion batteries. The question is, are these alternative battery chemistries something the e-bike industry is planning to adopt? And if so, on what timeline? And if not, what are the reasons for sticking with lithium-ion batteries? It's a great question. We have three speakers from the panel. And first, I'd like to welcome Ed Benjamin, Chair of Light Electric Vehicle Association. Ed? As Ed prepares here, Ed has an extensive 28-year consultancy in the battery industry. His expertise is in-depth monitoring and analysis of new battery technology since 1996. Ben, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, I finally got it unmuted. I'm having some struggles with my technology today, and I apologize for that. Due to my struggles, I'm just going to talk instead of try to show you the slides that I spent all morning preparing. So the question, does the industry have or are there less flammable alternatives? Well, the answer to that is yes, but for the most part, they're not suitable. They're not acceptable for what we need to do. They typically don't have enough energy storage, meaning you can't make the bike go very far. Another problem that the currently available alternatives have is that they are heavier and bulkier, and in some cases more expensive than the current lithium manganese metallurgy that dominates our industry. Now, I'd like to mention that a couple of realities. One of them is that lithium manganese, which is ubiquitous in our industry, is used because it is a good balance or a good combination of lightweight, high energy storage, good C rate, meaning you can get a great deal of current out of the battery. You can charge it relatively quickly. It is relatively inexpensive because it is used by a variety of industries, notably the consumer electronics industry. And most of it is made by automated equipment in factories that are pretty good. Panasonic, Samsung, Lishen, Philion, these are all companies that are quite good at what they do. And most of the battery packages that come to us are using cells made by these famous companies. Now, an intermediate step that is worth mentioning is that we can have a high quality cell that now has to be welded into packages and to get the correct amount of energy storage and the correct voltage. Now, that's where most of our quality control problems occur. Even if the battery packager is using high quality cells, they may not have quality control processes that are up to the task. Now, so what we're doing right now is a balance. It's a balance of cost, performance, and a couple of very important parts of that balance are if the battery package has been properly designed, properly manufactured, is properly controlled by a well-designed and operating battery management system, we basically don't have any problems with it. The problems that we have come when somebody in the supply chain is saying, I've got to have a cheaper battery, I got to have a cheaper battery, I got to have a cheaper battery, because the battery is the most expensive part of the bike. When you start saying to the supplier, I need to have a cheaper battery, one way to get a cheaper battery is to start cutting corners. Another place where problems occur is when the battery is not properly taken care of. You're using the wrong charger on it, or it gets stored outdoors perhaps, or it has had a very hard life, or in my hometown, it's been immersed in 4 feet of salt water. So if we can avoid these kind of damages, and we have got a quality product to start with, our chances of having a fire are actually very small. But we can see from recent experience that we do have a lot of batteries that are not properly treated and do create fires. So the question is, what about alternatives? Well, one of the things that is not well understood by the public at large is that the time frame involved between I have a miraculous new battery and the time that that battery is available to the electric bike industry at an appropriate price can easily be 15 years. I'll point to the lithium batteries that we use today were first patented in 1991. They were generally available at a price that our industry could afford about 2004, 13 years later. And they were broadly taken up by our industry in the United States starting about 2010. Now, we probably would go faster today because there's more attention given to batteries. But when you read the news or somebody tells you about a miraculous, wonderful, perfect for every application new battery, I'd like for everybody that's hearing me to say, well, I'll wait and see, because it's almost certain that the miraculous new battery is going to take longer, cost more, and be more, it'll be suitable for some particular niche, and it may or may not be our niche. So I urge a little bit of skepticism and a lot of patience on the idea that some new technology is going to come along and rescue us. One of the technologies that does exist today is the lithium iron phosphate. Now, lithium iron phosphate has many characteristics. It's more stable. It is functionally very similar to the lithium manganese that is the bulk of what we use. But it also has a couple of issues. One of the issues is it's considerably bulkier, it's considerably heavier, and at the moment I expect someday it will be cheaper, but that's not today. Right now, it's probably a little bit more expensive than lithium manganese in most cases. So what do we do in the short term? Be alert, be patient, insist that your supplier give you batteries that have been built with quality, that have been tested appropriately, and that you don't buy the cheapest thing. Whenever you're confronted with a cheap bike or a cheap battery, be very cautious. And one last constructive thing you can do, send your technicians to one of our online classes. Light Electric Vehicle Association teaches a battery safety and handling course. We teach a 4-hour, 8-hour, and 16-hour electric bike technician course. And if you've been trained in one of our courses, the very first thing we did was teach you how to recognize and how to deal with a battery that's going to be problematic. So I hope that covers the gamut of the questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ed. I really appreciate that. We have a couple more speakers today. I'll now turn it over to Mike Fritz, Chief Technology Officer of Human Powered Solutions. Mike?
Thank you, Heather. I wholeheartedly agree with and endorse what Ed has just said with respect to every point that he made. I have not seen a mass exodus or a move toward other chemistries at the present time. Based on what Ed just said, the issue is energy density. Lithium-ion batteries currently have the highest energy density, both in terms of gravimetric energy density, which is energy per pound, as well as volumetric energy density, which is energy given the volume of the battery cell. And given the fact that range anxiety is truly a big issue in consumers' minds, we want to put as much energy on board the bike that we can. And any alternative chemistry that has less energy density is probably going to make that particular e-bike less saleable than what they are currently. So we do want to maintain high energy levels in terms of what we carry around on our bikes to maximize range and available power. My personal favorite in terms of a future battery evolution is what they're calling solid state energy lithium-ion battery, or solid state lithium-ion batteries, which eliminates the liquid electrolyte, which is really the source of the problems when a lithium-ion cell fails. It's the electrolyte. It's very flammable. It has a very low flash point. It's essentially what causes that problem. The good thing about solid state lithium-ion batteries are they will have even higher energy density than what we currently see in the current technology. However, as Ed points out, it takes a long time for a new battery technology to see commercialization. Right now, the solid state lithium-ion battery R&D labs are working hard they've proven the fact that these batteries are safe and stable and have higher energy, but they haven't figured out how to manufacture them yet. And we're probably 3 to 5 years away, depending on whom you talk to. And then there's a very good chance that solid state lithium-ion batteries will introduce their own set of problems, which we're not aware of yet. So the bottom line is I don't see any kind of a move away from the current battery technology that we have. What I am seeing, and it's very encouraging, is the fact that companies are looking for ways to mitigate the fire danger if and when a cell fails. And I'm very pleased to report I've just received a copy of of a report that was published by the Electrochemical Society. It just crossed my desk day before yesterday. It shows some very promising, well, it shows some very disturbing realities as well as some very promising realities. Essentially, this was tests that were conducted by Exponent. For those of you who don't know, Exponent is one of the leading engineering, R&D, and forensic laboratories in the world. I've had the pleasure of working with Exponent on some battery fire failure analysis, and I can testify to the quality of their expertise and capabilities in terms of assessing the particular issues that are at hand right now. This report essentially says that some of the report is titled Evaluation of Fire Spread and Suppression Techniques in Micromobility Battery Packs. And I'll publish the link to this article in the chat in just a few minutes. But the bad news relative to this report is some of the mitigation technologies that we were looking toward in terms of mitigating the effects of a battery fire are fire blankets. And there's been a lot of talk about charging bags that a person could put a lithium-ion battery pack in for charging purposes. The testing that was performed by Exponent and is reported in this report indicates that that actually exacerbates a fire. It makes it worse. Apparently, the reason for that is that the blankets or bags hinder the dissipation, if you will, of the heat that's generated during a battery fire, and it actually speeds up cell-to-cell propagation, which is something you do not want to have happen. And in fact, the blankets that they were using for these tests failed. They burned through, and in addition to exacerbating the severity of the fire, they also did not perform as they were advertised. So the bottom line there is that we're holding hope out for a possible solution, especially in New York City, where you've got all of the gig workers with their substandard battery packs. Is this a short-term solution to help those guys safely charge their battery packs? And based on the conclusions drawn in this report, it's a resounding no. And as I say, you'll see once you have an opportunity to read the report. The good news is that they found that a technique that's being adopted initially by Rad Power, which was recently announced, I believe, just last week, is they're starting to fill their battery packs with a liquid polymer, a resin. The effort there is to insulate a cell, each cell in the serial parallel matrix from each other, such that if a cell fails, it doesn't propagate. A single cell failure is significantly less dangerous and deadly than a pack with 104 cells in it, which was the pack that they tested when all of the cells ultimately are forced into thermal runaway and fail. So in this particular case, they tested two insulating methodologies. One was the resin that was injected into the pack, and the other was an insulating blanket that they actually wrapped each cell in. The purpose of which obviously is to protect adjacent cells from cell-to-cell propagation. The good news is it worked. It worked 100% of the time. And in this particular case, once they forced one of the 18650s in the pack into thermal runaway, the failure was contained to the single cell. And I think that's very encouraging. Now, that said, this is one report based on one test. And clearly, we need to know more about it. There needs to be more evaluation of this technology. There is a downside. Obviously, it adds to the weight of the pack. Obviously, there needs to be more testing in terms of long-term life testing. Does that resin actually insulate each cell such that the heat that's generated during the charging and discharging process may accelerate the end of life, if you will, of the cell? It may compromise the cycle life that we'd see. So there's a lot that needs to be learned. There's a lot more research that needs to be done to validate this. If a Rad Power executive or individual is a representative is on the call today, I would certainly be interested in seeing whatever testing that they've done to validate the resin that they're using and the process that they're using to actually modify their packs. But if this is true and there are no unintended consequences that we're not aware of at this point, this could be a really, really good short-term solution to significantly mitigating the danger of a failing lithium-ion battery in a battery pack. Now, I've said it many times before, this issue isn't going to go away until all of the substandard packs, all of the cheap packs that Ed alluded to, are purged from the marketplace. As long as we've got those cheap packs in there with substandard cells, manufactured with methodologies that are substandard in terms of the overall quality of the battery pack, we're going to continue to have fires. The bad news is fire blankets and charging bags don't work to help mitigate that. So we're going to have to continue to educate users relative to these hazards and advise them how to practice safe charging methodology, if you will, in order to prevent the loss of life that may possibly occur if a battery fails. But again, I'll post the link to this study in the chat. Please read it. It's very technical. There's a lot of very high-level engineering applied in with respect to this particular investigation. And again, it is only one report, but the information coming out of this is very, very promising from my perspective. I think it justifies a significant investment in further research and development to validate this methodology. But if in fact it does work as it did in this particular instance, we've got a light at the end of the tunnel that's a whole lot closer than what I thought it was. But again, this is all going to be moving forward and not retrospective, not retroactive, if you will, to current packs in the marketplace. As long as we have bad packs out there, we're going to continue to see these events. For those that haven't heard, there was another fire in New York City yesterday afternoon. An apartment building caught fire. There's not been conclusive evidence that it was an e-bike fire. They did find an e-bike with a burned out battery pack under a stairwell, but they think that the e-bike battery burned due to a fire that was of a different nature. So maybe this isn't another one that's going to get labeled an e-bike fire, but nevertheless, clearly it represents a significant issue that New York City and other parts of the country and the world are currently suffering with. So with that, as I say, I'll post the link. Please read this. If you can, skip through the technical part and go right to the conclusions, because it's very encouraging.
Thank you, Mike. Always a really honor to have your expertise on the call today.
Thank you.
I really like this question. Thank you, Don, so much for bringing it to the panel. We have one more speaker, and then we'll turn it over to open discussion. I'd like to welcome Michael DeVisser, CEO and founder of OHM Electric Bikes. He will present his latest talk on battery misconceptions. Recently, he shared this at the BC Bike Show in Vancouver, Canada. So very excited to have him join on now. Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Heather. And yeah, thanks for the invitation to the forum, and really honored to be here speaking with Ed and Mike. So this is I'll just put up a few slides. And let's see. Let's see if this will, okay. Okay, so this is just a small part of a presentation I made last week at the BC Bike Show, and obviously the battery safety is a pretty hot topic in the industry. We've had a couple of pretty high profile battery incidents in Canada. One last January, there was a fatality, and it was a battery without a BMS, and the battery was overcharged and then caught fire in someone's apartment. The other one was in the subway in Toronto. There was no injuries, but there was some damage, and yeah, people had to evacuate the subway. So battery fires still happening. Fortunate for us, we've been in this business for coming up 20 years, and we've not had any battery incidences. But yeah, I will touch on, I just put it out there, I'm not a scientist, but I'll put forward just some of our experience and about any of the new battery technology and yeah, innovations about safety, and then some environmental considerations. So if you've searched online for battery technology, you probably heard about sodium batteries. It seems to be the closest performance to lithium. And yeah, obviously some huge benefits. these batteries can be discharged to 0 volts. They can operate in a wider temperature than lithium. If you've ridden your e-bike in sub-zero temperatures, you notice the range is not as good. Yeah, these batteries seem to address that issue. Obviously, a lower impact on the environment, but the big thing that Ed touched on is the energy density, and it's almost half of the energy density. So you could imagine a sodium-ion battery in, say, a 500 watt-hour battery is going to be like 3 times the, or at least double the weight, and but having basically half the range. There's, yeah, just economically, there's not enough performance in these batteries to be able to compete with lithium-ion batteries, which, as Ed and Mike mentioned, they already have 20 years of evolution and efficiencies behind them. So it's it looks like a promising technology, but it's not able to meet the demands for electric vehicles yet. Maybe with more investment, but that's the thing. It's like, who wants to invest in something that's so far behind the evolution of the lithium-ion battery? And these batteries, even though they're less flammable than lithium-ion, they still, the solution inside of them, if the battery is damaged, then this electrolyte solution is still flammable, but won't react to water the same as a lithium battery. So you might have seen the new form factor from that Tesla developed is the 4680 battery. And my first thought was, oh, this would be, this would further reduce the cost of a e-bike battery. However, these newer form factors, they don't have the same heat dissipation characteristics as the current 18650 or 21700s. So these would be developed for electric vehicles with some sort of cooling device in them that will keep the battery cool. So it's not really applicable for electric bikes. So we'll definitely see the 18650 and 21700s. Most likely the 21700 will kind of take over the 18650 because it's basically less cells inside the battery, and so that's going to reduce the cost. And finally, I'll touch on solid state. So there's obviously a lot of research going into solid state batteries to be used in electric vehicles. I would say the biggest factor is the fast charging. So they're looking at potentially being able to charge these batteries in 15 minutes. So they can be charged at a higher amperage without damaging the battery. They have lower risk of thermal runaway, but still, at this point, they're not, the production process has not been fully realized yet. So it's, yeah, we're looking at least 2 to 3 years until commercial availability. And then even when they are commercially available, these batteries won't, potentially won't be as cost effective as a lithium-ion battery. So yeah, in manufacturing, it always comes down to cost and the how the process can be improved over time. And then the big red flag for solid state is the recyclability. So the last stat I heard for recycling lithium-ion batteries was that there was only 5% of lithium-ion batteries being recycled. haven't figured out a process for recycling solid state batteries. So I would say this is a big factor. And we also heard about the rad power batteries with the resin fill. I mean, this is definitely a great idea for making the batteries potentially more safe. But then, how do you recycle a battery that's been dipped into a resin form? And so that's, I mean, obviously safety is the biggest priority, but these batteries are getting used with materials that are not necessarily renewable. So we also need to be aware of that. So I hope that answers some questions for everyone.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciated that fantastic overview and the slides you put together. Let me open this up now to the rest of the panel members. Would anyone like to speak on this topic additionally?
Yeah, this is Kunal with Bosch. Just like to make a quick comment here. The first two speakers did allude to this, that an effectively designed lithium-ion battery pack with an effective BMS does lead to a safer battery. In addition, what I believe is when these battery packs are certified by an ISO 17065 laboratory or an NRTL, where the manufacturing lines are also audited unannounced to make sure that the materials, components, and designs that have been used continue to be the same, you have effectively a safer battery pack. Resins, the previous person mentioned that sustainability also has to be accounted for when you're designing the battery pack, and so are right to repair laws. So as you all know, there's a lot of push for right to repair laws also in the country and Europe, worldwide. So again, there are many ways to make a safer battery, but having an effective certification process also behind it helps a lot.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And for our attendees, I just did, Larry Peasy from People for Bikes did share some important information how we can actually get involved by asking Congress to reform de minimis. And there's a link there to People for Bikes so we can all take action. Thank you, Larry, for sharing that. Michael, I see your hand up.
I just wanted to touch base on my association.
Michael, you might want to turn your video off. Yeah.
Sorry, let me.
There you go.
Yeah, I just did. So just wanted to touch base on something that Michael said about the Toronto fire on the TTC. We reached out to them shortly after that happened. It's literally an hour away from me, and my cousin works for the TTC, so it hit a little close to home. They aren't done their investigation yet. I had a few meetings with them afterwards. They're about 70%, and we want to get to the root cause of what caused that fire. E-bikes have been taking a couple black eyes lately, the industry, and sometimes they're not even related to an e-bike. So we reached out to them, and we are actually invited to the Toronto working group for lithium-ion batteries. And there will be educational resources coming out in June for the public that I'd be happy to share with the group as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Michael. All right, I will turn it over to topic number 2. For this topic, we have one speaker, but I do anticipate that several of our attendees, our retailer attendees, might have some additional questions. So really looking forward to get into this topic. This was proposed for the panel to discuss by retailer Francisco Cornelio, head manager and head mechanic at N+1 Cyclery and Museum. The topic is competing on quality, looking at the specialty bicycle retailer versus low-cost e-bikes that can be purchased online. The question specifically states, how can the specialty bicycle retailer differentiate and compete against the lower-priced, unregulated e-bikes in a market where price often takes precedence over quality? I think what this retailer is experiencing is that consumers or riders are purchasing bikes online that aren't the same quality that the specialty bicycle retailer sells. And the price difference makes it very hard to compete. So he wanted just some feedback from the panel on different ways to approach this. I'm thankful for speaker Richard Wittenberg, CEO of Truxus Mobility, who will lead off the conversation. Richard?
Good morning, everyone. I think I like to look at this situation as one of that AA kind of has a serenity prayer, and the Bible shares it. You know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that when we're dealing with low-priced, unsafe product coming into the market, there are certain things we can do as retailers to and brands that we can do to help motivate people to buy quality product. But I think there's also a certain part of this market that has always been exceptionally price sensitive, and it's nothing new. I mean, we've been dealing with this for as long as mass market has been carrying products. And if you think back to the late 1990s, early 2000s, there was the same criticism of how do specialty retailers compete with the big box retailers who don't necessarily assemble their bikes properly. The bikes aren't, you know, designed to perform at the same level that we have with IBD. So I don't think this is anything new. And I think some of the strategies that were deployed back then still apply now. I think, you know, what we can do, and we've hit on it a couple of times here already today, is, you know, it's making sure that product that's brought into the market meets a suitable safety standard, and that we are making sure that the government is doing what they need to do. Because this ultimately comes down to, you know, without some sort of government intervention, there is no way that we're going to be able to block unsafe product coming into the market. Because the fact is, there are thousands of factories all over the world who can slam together a bunch of pieces, put an ad on Facebook, and ship it into the US market. There is no barrier into, you know, Larry's work on de minimis duties and de minimis importation, I think, is a first great step towards helping eliminate that. But ultimately, until we as an industry get behind, you know, making sure that bikes that are imported into the United States meet or exceed 2849 certification protocols, it's going to be hard to do it. But what we can control, and what is within our control, is sort of selling ourselves. Because ultimately, what you need to communicate is, what are the benefits of buying from a specialty retailer? I think we assume everybody understands, but I continue to be amazed when I talk with retailers throughout the country is, well, you know, I see brand A or brand D selling these bikes and I can't make any money doing it. Well, you know, are you properly articulating your reason for being, Mr. Consumer? When I deliver a bike to you, I've assembled it. I warranty it. I'm here for you if you've got a problem. We assume that consumers that are shopping on the internet, that buying an e-bike on Facebook is the same thing as buying, you know, a cell phone case on Facebook. And it's just, you can't compare that. So it's what we can control is, how are we going to communicate that need to a consumer? And quite frankly, there's a certain part of the e-bike buying public that we will never get and never be able to convince them that buying from a specialty retailer is worth their while. One is they just quite frankly can't afford, you know, a $1,500 or $1,200 e-bike, and they only have $700 or $800. And you know what? I don't know if you really want to chase that customer anyway, because I'm not sure, except for hoping to move them up the food chain as they buy their second and third bike, that you're going to have the opportunity to sell them anything with any product. So, really it's focusing on making sure you and your staff can clearly articulate your unique selling propositions of service, of security, of peace of mind. It's making sure that, you're only carrying bikes at 2849 pass those certification levels and standards. It's making sure that, we do everything we can to support the actions of the NBDA and the BPSA to get de minimis duties reformed so that we're blocking as many of these truly dangerous products from the market. And really just focusing on what we can control, which is making sure that people who come into our shops, we're providing them the products they need. And there is one other piece here that I think is important. People seek alternative products because they're not finding the products that they need within the specialty channel. And I know this is going to be a very controversial statement, but there is what I believe is a bit of a misconception within the industry that one, categorically hub drive e-bikes are somehow less than mid-drive bikes. And I'm not sure that's necessarily an accurate statement anymore. And two, that throttles are fundamentally bad. And when we look at what customers want throttles, and customers are not convinced that mid-drive bikes are the only solution for them, because either A, they've rented a hub drive bike, or their friends have hub drive bikes. So it's making sure that you provide your customers bikes that do meet the needs that they want and they desire.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. I see a couple hands going up, and I'd like to now turn it over to Brian Hawkins. I'm interested to hear his thoughts from a retail store communication standpoint. So Brian, would you lend some insight here?
I can. My image looks frozen. Am I coming through okay?
I can hear you, but you are definitely frozen, but it's not like your mouth is wide open. So I think
there's something weird happening to my head in the frozen picture too. I simply was gonna point out that I've been in the retail store design and communication industry for a long, long time. And one of the first things that comes to mind when we're talking about this topic, building on what Richard said, is the communication that happens inside the store. It sounds like a no-brainer, but you don't see it very often. And I think it's really important for our industry, for the shops, to get ahead of the stories out there in the news and to get ahead of the topic of the complicated topic of selling an e-bike. And if you just simply build some signage inside the store that starts to demystify the category and tell people what is the difference between a good e-bike and a bad e-bike, or what's the difference between a safe one and an unsafe one, or what's the difference between mid-drive and hub drive, you just don't see that kind of communication happening enough inside the stores. It would be easy to do. And your customers would appreciate it, because I always say that one of your biggest jobs with anything printed inside the store, like signage, graphics, things like that, is to help customers ask better questions. And a few communications like that inside the store, heck, on your website, so that it reaches them before they even get to your store, training with the staff, that kind of stuff, so that you can get in front of the topic of what the differences are between products, what the great advantages are to your product versus other products out there, and just help customers ask those better questions. I think that would go a long way.
Excellent, Brian. Thank you so much. I love that in-store communication ideas. Some fabulous tips there as always. Larry Peasy, I see your hand up. Thank you for adding to the conversation.
Sure. Thanks, Heather. I think one of the most significant differentiators that a specialty retailer has in the e-bike space is the ability to provide after service. Direct-to-consumer brands really struggle with this. And when a product fails, consumer experiences incredible remorse for having maybe saved a few dollars on the front end. More and more people are beginning to utilize e-bikes for real transportation alternatives. We're seeing this especially with commuting bikes and cargo bikes for both personal and commercial use, and reliability is key. So, from my perspective, the thing that really truly differentiates the purchase between a specialty retailer and a direct-to-consumer brand is the ability to provide that after service. And I think we need to raise the bar, because as people are beginning to utilize bikes for real transportation alternatives, their expectation is one that's similar to what they experience when they take their car in for service. And I think we have to begin to implement that kind of level of service and convenience to consumers when they're getting their e-bike repaired. An integral part in being able to do that is to purchase, for retailers to stock products that have a supply chain of replacement parts. Many of the products out there, when you're making a buying decision, have real problems getting replacement parts and having them readily available, so that if something fails, you can get that consumer back on the road really quickly. So I think service is a really important differentiator.
I could not agree more, Larry, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. Fabulous ad there. Michael Fritz?
Sell safety. I would venture a guess that 80% of the people in this country are aware of the e-bike battery crisis. This has been headlines for 18 months. It's not a big secret that e-bike lithium-ion batteries have caused a problem in New York City, and I think most of the country knows that. My advice to dealers is buy UL certified product and make a big deal out of the fact that the bikes that you sell have been certified safe by UL. UL is the most trusted safety certification agency in the world. If a person's got second thoughts about whether or not it's a good idea to bring an e-bike into his home with his family, basically explain, hey, we are certified. Our products have passed the tests. Our products have been judged to be safe for their intended use, which is not to say you still have to care for your batteries, as Ed mentioned earlier. But the point is rely on the fact that these products have been tested and demonstrated and certified to be safe by the world's leading safety agency, and make a big deal out of that. Yes, our bikes cost more, and this is one of the reasons. Not only do we design and engineer these utilizing the finest engineering expertise, manufacturing skill, and quality components, but we also test them to make sure that they're not going to hurt you. I think my former boss, Lee Iacocca, may have been the first individual to sell safety in the automobile industry. And, to this day, it's a big deal. So the same is true with electric bicycles. And I don't think we should diminish the importance of that in justifying the higher price of quality e-bikes as opposed to some of the junk that's coming in under de minimis.
Thank you, Michael. Some great ideas here with in-store signage, service, safety, quality. Kunal from Bosch, would you like to go next?
Yes, just a quick comment. That is absolutely not necessary that the e-bike system should be certified by UL. What is more important, that it should be certified to the UL standard. There are plenty of accredited laboratories with the same skill set, the same means of providing the certification. So this notion of it has to be certified by UL is completely wrong. It can be certified by any ISO 17065 lab or an NRDL. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Yes, there are many labs who can certify to the safety standard as mentioned. Michael from SEBA.
I just wanted to touch base on something that Larry said, because my mentality is exactly the same. I've owned an e-bike only shop here in Canada. We're a northern climate, very short season, and Larry hit the nail on the head where you have the automotive industry. People are relying on their bicycle or their e-bike like a car. When it's broken, they don't have a way to get to work, and they need that after sales service. And traditional bike shops provide great service for traditional bikes. The public needs that same great service that they get with a bicycle that they would get with an e-bike, or the same great service they would get with their car. And another thing that Larry said was working with distributors. 15 years in business, I get calls and emails every single day from distributors across North America that want to get their product in my shop. And one of the first questions I ask them is, do you have a parts list with pricing? And most of them say, we're still working on that. That's a good indicator to not kind of, shy away from working with that distributor. They're not very established. They don't have the parts possibly in stock. They don't even have a parts list. When I started my business 15 years ago, the first thing I focused on was after sales service, because none of my competition around me had that. And the first thing I did was I bought all the parts for my bike, the critical parts, and put them on my wall to show the consumer that, look, I have every single nut, bolt, and part for our bikes in-house. We'll be able to get you back on the road quickly. You might not be able to get that at all the shops you visit or any online retailers. So I think that's a very critical point. I'll actually be talking about that next, so I don't want to dive too deep into it. But definitely Larry and Mike with the UL certified, that'll separate you from some other sellers as well. I think those are three very good points.
Thank you, Michael. And I will take this opportunity then to go right into topic 3, because I feel that this does roll perfectly into the next topic. This topic was presented to us by Greg McDonald, General Manager of Ridley Cycle in Canada. And the topic is specialty bicycle retailer support challenges and solutions for e-bikes. The question is, what are the key challenges that the specialty bicycle retailer faces in providing robust support for e-bike customers? We're afraid that if we are not able to provide the correct support to customers, we're going to lose these customers to other sports or direct-to-consumer, lesser quality e-bike brands. So the question is, and I think it's flowing right into the service conversation, what can we do to overcome losing this market share? So that dialing in that robust support for our e-bike customer. We have 2 speakers, and then I'll open it up to the rest of the panel or to our attendees for questions. So Michael, do you want to kick us right off?
Yes, it segues right into just the topic that I was just talking about. So, and everybody knows, 15 years in the industry, starting as an e-bike only shop, and still to this day, there is a lot of challenges, and robust service is one of the things that is still lacking in our industry. A lot of shops are very hesitant to actually work on a bike that they don't sell. I mean, there's insurance reasons behind that as well, but there's also staff issues. So there are challenges here. And I want to share some of the challenges that I recognized in our industry and then overcoming those challenges. One of them is independent bike dealers need to embrace e-bike sales and service. If they don't, they are going to risk getting left behind. So recently I was at Cabda East. When I got back, I went right to the Toronto show, and I talked to a bicycle retailer there and asked him if they service e-bikes. And he looked at me like I had 3 heads and said, no, we don't touch electric bikes in our shop. And I said, why not? He said, well, we have an electric bike shop down the street. We send all our business over there. So highly resistant to working on an electric bike. And I can understand why, which I'll get into soon. Retailers risk losing market share to other local shops, not just to direct to consumer. So other shops around you, if they start servicing and diagnosing electric bikes, you're going to lose market share locally. not just from direct to consumer. You don't want to lose business to a local shop or D2C. Cabda East, when I walked around the show, 80% of the vendors were electric bikes. And the same thing when I went back to Toronto a few days later, 80% of the vendors were electric bikes. They're clearly dominating the market, and you don't want to get left behind. Most of the mid-drive systems have full training programs on how to diagnose failures and great support. But no companies I know of in North America provide training for rear hub motors. Rear hub motors represent a high majority of the e-bikes on the road, but IBDs are on their own for training. There's not one distributor of hub motors that provides training. It's still to this day, every distributor I asked at Cabda in Toronto, they said yes when I asked them about training. I will get into that in a minute. But the other challenge, which is huge, is your existing bicycle technicians that have been working at your shop, either just started or been a mechanic for 20 years. They didn't sign up for electric bikes. They were thrust upon the role of working on electric bikes without any training whatsoever. So I see that as a big challenge, because you're kind of putting this on them and expecting them to know what to do when it comes to the hub driven motors. And they're some mechanics aren't comfortable doing that, and they have a role to play in being a mechanic, but with no training. I mean, you wouldn't have somebody working at your warehouse driving a forklift that started on day one and just hand them the keys. They would need some training, one for safety and handling the lithium batteries, but also knowing how to diagnose the bikes without doing a big guessing game of swapping parts. And shops are just generally fearful of electric bikes because they're relatively new. And the biggest thing is it takes them out of their comfort zone from working on traditional bikes. And they have to break out of that comfort zone. And I think the biggest benefit is if they start embracing e-bikes, there's a few barriers like training, which I'll discuss on overcoming the challenges. Number one, independent bike dealers can provide services direct to consumers can't. As somebody spoke earlier, I think it was Richard and Larry, proper fittings of the bike, test drives, the educational resources that are on the wall or on your website, specialized knowledge, properly assembling and checking the e-bike prior to the customer getting on it, and one-on-one personal interactions direct to consumers cannot provide. You can't get that through a computer. And my personal favorite is watching that person jump on their e-bike for the first time and taking them outside and showing them how to use it. And on their way back is that ear-to-ear smile on a customer's face when they ride an e-bike. You can't really put a price on that, and see how happy consumers are. That's a big thing, that direct to consumers sellers can't get. If independent bike dealers embrace, carry, and sell e-bikes, they'll secure future service, just like the traditional bikes have done for their existing business for generations. You want that same model that you gave the high level of service to your bicycle customers, and be able to do that with e-bikes. And in my opinion, you can let the direct to consumer push the bikes out so you can pull in the service. I do not see a direct to consumer model stopping anytime soon. So the more the bikes they push out, you want to be able to pull the service in. And that'll get you, somebody spoke earlier of, they might buy an entry level bike at first, but if you get them in your shop for service and provide a great service, they're more inclined to buy that second bike from you. And most people don't know e-bikes very well. They just want to scratch the surface and get a cheaper one. But their second one, if they had great service, they will eventually need service. And shops want to be in a position to provide that service. So most D2C brands are brushless hub rear driven motors that usually cost less than mid-drive system, but can still be thousands of dollars and will need service, as they're not disposable. Dealers should prepare their businesses for success for after-sale service of direct-to-consumer hub motor brands. Selling and servicing e-bikes is a whole new revenue stream, and it's here now and only growing each day. I think, Heather, in one of your webinars, you said there was 1.5 million direct-to-consumer e-bikes out there, and your shops, you want to get in a position to capitalize on that. One of the canaries in the mine that I see is shops need to ask themselves, how many calls a day are you getting to service e-bikes that are not the brand that you sell, and saying no? And let that tell you if you should be servicing e-bikes or not. Listen to your new customers. They're asking for help. Be the shop that says, yes, we service e-bikes. The key to all of this is getting your mechanics the training that they need. Put them in a position to be successful in diagnosing other direct-to-consumer brands with brushless hub motors, or even other brands that you're facing on the market. Mechanics need that confidence. They need to have that confidence to safely, quickly, and accurately diagnose an e-bike without spending wasted time swapping parts and guessing. When I was at CABDA, I did speak to over 50 distributors between CABDA and Toronto in the last week, and asked them all one question: do you provide training to your dealers? And each one of them replied exactly the same: yes, of course. I asked them what kind of training. They replied, support. And the dealer could start a ticket or call, and they would help diagnose the bike over the phone. If they still could not find the problem, they could Zoom call. They could ship parts until they found the problem, was resolved. Worst case, the dealer would ship the bike back. This creates frustration for independent bike dealers, as well as a bad customer experience. So at SEBA, we do have e-bike technician training built specifically for retailers to be profitable, and open up your service center to electric bikes. It's based on my 15 years in the e-bike space that will give your technicians the ability to diagnose rear hub motors in about 15 minutes, and the ability to service all makes and models of brushless hub motorbikes. Benjamin from Leva also provides a course. I mean, you can never have too much training, especially on something that you don't know a lot about or your technicians are not comfortable with. And that's one of the things that is coming up in a lot of these meetings that constantly pops up, like Larry, Mike talked about, and I've talked about in the past. It's a very common theme. Training is the key to the success of the retailer in the future, and being able to diagnose the direct-to-consumer bikes. If you can get the customers in, there's a high probability. I've seen it myself in my 15 years. We get that initial customer in that's not even getting great service at their local shop around my shop that bought their bike, and now they bring their bike to us, and now they're our customer. They don't want to go anywhere else. So in my opinion, I think that's the key and the link to being able to really kind of supercharge your service center, as well as being able to handle direct-to-consumer bikes and other brands that you don't sell, is getting comfortable and getting trained.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate your insight there. It was great seeing you at the CABDA East show, and also noting that Leva has training as well. And I see that Mr. Benjamin did put that in the chat as well. So there is lots of opportunity between your two organizations for retailers to reach out and get training. I have two more speakers, so we'll keep it moving forward. Richard Wittenberg from Truxas Mobility again. Richard?
I'm not sure I have all that much more to add. I think last speaker did a great job on that. I think the questions you should ask your potential suppliers are in terms of, you need to be comfortable that when you've got a problem, they're going to have your back, right? So we're talking about a new technology, and it's not unlike what we experienced with disc brakes on mountain bikes back in the 80s. It was like, okay, when they were cable actuated, we kind of understood it, so we could kind of figure it out. But then as soon as we went to hydro systems and all these other things, there was a whole bunch of pushback, just largely because of a lack of knowledge and a lack of education. So it really comes down to, okay, am I training my staff? But on the other end of the phone are the people who are supporting me scared of the same technology. You know, I can tell you and highlight a number of, especially the low-cost direct-to-consumer brands that my brand is premium to, but that I have to compete with. Their warranty and service departments are an expense line on a P&L that they try to minimize, right? And so there's no way that unless you go into your P&L building as a manufacturer, that you're prioritizing service, you can be successful. It's just, it's a cost that you as a manufacturer have to build into your total profitability. And if you haven't properly allocated for that, there is no way we can support you, the dealer, in the way that you need to be supported to be able to support your staff who needs to be on the front line to take care of these problems. So, you know, one question you need to ask again is your service staff based in the United States, or are they based overseas? Right? That's the one thing that you're going to want to ask, so that you make sure that you're talking to somebody in the same time zone and can speak to you in an authoritative and conclusive manner. Two, I think the statement about show me your parts list, show me what your inventory is, show me what the pricing is, and just validate yourself. Like, do they have the controllers? Do they have the wiring harnesses? Do they have the displays? Do they have all of the nuts and bolts that if I have a problem, I can get a part back to that customer right away so that they can stay on the road? And I think more importantly is, and the people at Turn taught me this, and I think it was a great statement, is when you sell a bike to somebody, it's not a transaction, it's a relationship, right? Because you're getting married to that customer for 5 years, and that you have to have the understanding that, you know, that bike needs to have parts available for it for 5 years after you sell it. And are the manufacturers you're working at thinking of it that way? And do they have solutions for all bikes that are in the pipeline through the total life cycle of that bike? And I can tell you that 90% of the companies out there are not thinking that way. So I think that's really all I have to say on this. But you know, it is about overcoming lack of knowledge and fear, right? What are the two fundamental motivators of human beings? Fear and greed. And it goes for, how do you get people to spend money in your shop, and how do you get your employees over the hurdle of being scared of electric bikes, right? It's getting around that fundamental motivator of fear.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. I love everyone's individual opinion and your diverse background, bringing forward what you're sharing today and what you're adding. And it's really great to hear from so many speakers. Peter from Electric Pete's e-bikes, were you going to add to this conversation as well? Oh, you are on mute now. I see you're trying to talk. Francis, are you able to unmute him for him? All right. I'm sorry, Pete. I'm not seeing that you're unmuted. If we can figure that out, I'm happy to have you join in. Did anyone else on the panel want to add to this topic of exploration conversation, the support, challenge, and solutions?
The distributor does add. That's one of the most important links in the chain. If you're dealing with a distributor, from my experience, as soon as you ask them, which someone just brought up, you know, do you have a parts list? Where are you located? Do you have other dealers that carry your product? Reach out to those other dealers before you commit to a brand, and just ask them, how is the brand? How is their support? Most dealers will be pretty honest when you reach out to them. That's a good barometer to see what type of company you're dealing with, because you got to remember, you want to build a long-term relationship with that distributor. There's no shortage of them popping up every day, but who's going to be there at the end? So you want to make sure that when you're selling a bike a year later or 2 years later, you can still get parts for that bike. So you can keep that customer going on the road and not having a disposable product. That's a real key to the future of independent retailers as well, is linking up with a great distributor.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Dawn, I see your hand up. Thank you.
Hey everyone. I just wanted to kind of validate a lot of what you were saying from the perspective of a customer. You know, I go to a shop in my neighborhood that actually only sells its own bikes and e-bikes of its own brand. But they will service my direct-to-consumer e-bike and all my acoustic bikes. They don't make me feel bad about it. You know, but while I'm there, I see their bikes, I see the service they're providing, I see, you know, what they offer in terms of, you know, that sort of reliability, you know, that someone was talking about, acknowledging that people really rely on their bikes for their daily lives. So they have service standards for how quickly they'll turn it around. I think they might even offer like loaner bikes if you need one while your bike is in the shop. And so, you know, I think over the past couple of years, they've really been sort of reeling us in and earning us as a customer, you know, for the next time we buy bikes, they're going to really be at the top of the list. And I think the other thing is, you know, I get asked constantly about my e-bike, and people say, you know, should I get one? What should I do? And I say, definitely get an e-bike. It'll change your life. But I wouldn't recommend this exact one I have because I've had a little bit of problems, like, you know, and then I kind of throw out a couple names of brands that, you know, are more established, and where I talk to people who've had like a better, like long-term experience. So I think doing the good work that a good shop does, especially with people who don't have your bike yet, but need a place for service, you know, can pay off in the medium to long run with their next bike, or with sending their friends there, or with some revenue from service. So just wanted to share that.
Dawn, thank you so much. It's great to hear from a rider's perspective. So I really, really appreciate and Electric Pete, I see you are unmuted. I'm happy to have you share. Thank you.
Okay, is it working this time? Yeah, I see the box around me. Hey, what question am I supposed to stay on track with?
Okay, so we're on topic 3, which is around the support for the specialty bicycle retailer on challenges that they might not be able to provide the support for e-bike customers. We're talking a lot about service right now, but anything you can add to that conversation?
Sure, thanks. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't get off topic. Support from the direct-to-consumer brands, it's next to nothing. But when I get some of those bikes in for service, I just tell the customer what their bike needs and say, you get the part, you hold on the phone for an hour, and then I'll put it back together. And that works for the most part. Training, I don't think most bike shops want to do it. They don't want to deal with something new like electricity. And they'll turn away bikes and end up sending them to me for some of the simplest bicycle adjustments, when they could have just done it in the store and taken their money there. Parts, always a problem with some of these bikes. Yeah, I gotta get stuff from AliExpress, only because it's the only place I can find some of these things. But the parts don't always play nice with each other. So even when I replace a system and not just a controller, things don't always work as well as they should. But for the most part, I've got it figured out and I get things done.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Pete. And I see one more hand up. Michael, did you want to add a comment in?
I did. And diagnosing is a term that has a lot of different interpretations from a distributor standpoint, from a retailer standpoint. What I mean by diagnosing an e-bike and having the ability to do that, I think this the topic just came up on, parts aren't compatible. Where do I get parts? A lot of direct to consumer customers can't get a shop to even look at their bike. So if you have the training and the ability, and one of the biggest barriers is they look at the bike and they say, where am I going to get parts for this? Or, I don't have a relationship with the distributor that makes that bike. In my shop, what I did, I opened my whole shop up to say, bring in any make or model of brushless hub motor, and we'll be able to diagnose it for you. And I'll tell the customer on the phone, we won't have any parts for you. We don't carry that brand. But what we will do is we'll get you an answer with 100% accuracy of what's wrong with that bike. So whether it be a motor, controller, throttle, battery, whatever it may be, there's a standard diagnostic fee, and then we'll get you an answer. You may have to get the part on your own, but at least you don't have a boat anchor sitting in your garage. So that's kind of what you'll get out of the training, and you'll be able to say yes to a lot of these people that already went to 4 or 5 shops and everybody said no. If you're the only shop that said yes, they're going to be over the moon to at least get an answer and know what's wrong with their bike. And that's where training gets you to that level where you'll be able to do that very quickly and very accurately without swapping parts. That's a barrier for the dealers because they'll say, I don't have parts to swap out to figure out what's wrong. Well, parts swapping is not diagnosing. There is a diagnostic process that that the dealers need to know in order to be able to have that ability.
Thank you, Michael. Jeff, thank you for being here. Jeff, would you like to comment as well?
Yeah, just really quick, and it's just a realization that smacked me in the face recently. Basically, top to bottom in the bicycle industry, whether that's dealers all the way up to major brands and things that I think that we're starting to miss is that the e-bike customer is a different customer than we've dealt with historically. The bicycle customer has always been somebody that, they were bikers, they lived the bike life. We understood that sort of customer really well. But what I'm seeing from my experience and realizations is that the e-bike customer is a completely different customer. It overlaps a little bit with the traditional bicycle customer, but for the most part, it doesn't. And I think the sooner we as an industry and as dealers and as everybody involved in this revolution of transport understands who that new consumer is and who that new customer is, I think you're going to really see some traction and benefit for your shop, for your overall company, for the models you're designing and producing, for the technology, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to sort of throw that in the ring quick. Thanks.
I'm thankful to have you throw that in, and that is a conversation that we've been having with retailers, and it actually flows directly into our topic 4. So Jeff, thank you for that. So if the panel is okay, let's move on to topic 4. This topic is exciting to me to have a discussion around, and it's around engaging communities with e-bikes, and it speaks to this new customer. And the question is, who are the key demographic targets, and what opportunities exist for connecting with the new e-bike customers? This could include active seniors, commuters, individuals with accessibility or adaptive needs. Let's discuss some best practices for the specialty bicycle retailer to showcase the versatility of e-bikes. And then I would also add, as Jeff is explaining, that we also need to educate these customers on the servicing that's required, and on the additional accessories that they can purchase to make the ride more enjoyable. It's a whole new diverse demographic. So I don't have any speakers that did sign up to talk on this on the panel, but did anyone want to jump in on this conversation? How are we reaching these new diverse customers? Okay, Pete, thank you. You're muted again, so you'll just have to go through that process, but now that we know how, we should be good to go. Perfect.
Did I get it right?
Perfect.
Yeah, there's the box. I do have a lot of handicapped and partially disabled people come in needing a little extra something on their electric bikes that they're trying to use to get around. And I have a long background of creating things in all kinds of different mediums. So, you know, a lot of times it's grabbing some stock out of the pile and welding it together just so that the person has a bike that they can use. One of the more interesting ones was a lady who only had one arm, but I managed to get a brake lever that has two cables on it so she could use her good hand to stop the bike, and she was over the moon to have something that she could ride instead of just having to walk around all the time. A little boy with a hand-powered cycle. Nobody else could fix it. Nobody else knew what to do with it, but I put it back together and put a big smile on his face. So there's a lot of stuff you can do just by listening to get them a bike that these people can use or make a small modification. I don't see servicing that modification as being a problem, just because it's something at least semi-permanent that you don't have to adjust. It's just there. That should do it.
Excellent. Thank you. Richard, I see your hand up.
Yeah. So you asked about demographics. So I think from our perspective and in terms of engagement, one is, you know, we're in Southern California, San Diego specifically. And for the first time in decades, we have full bike racks at middle and high schools. So that first big demographic is those before they get their driver's license, but they need to have wheels and transportation. We are 100% like locking on to those consumers, and we've got to hold on to them and not lose them when they get their driver's license. So, you know, community outreach to schools is important. Safety training and safety concerns need to be addressed. We've had some issues here in Carlsbad specifically, but, you know, working on those types of things. And then the other demographic is, you know, all these people who are retiring and who have these big buckets of cash, who are looking for things to stay active and stay healthy. And that's the other major segment that we see specifically growing. And so having a coffee clutch ride and sponsoring something like that, where, you know, seniors can get out and ride together, and, you know, they're not limited by what time of the day they can and can't go. They're looking for things to do in the middle of the day. And we're not talking about 80-year-old people. We're talking about people in their late 50s, early 60s who, you know, want to get out, want to recreate with a group, and, you know, try sponsoring some of those rides the same way you would do for those avid cyclists, where you would have that group ride on Saturday morning. Have a Thursday morning coffee clutch ride, something like that. We've seen those to be somewhat successful. The other piece I'd like to just clarify from my perspective is, you know, we're saying that this is a new consumer. And I think the answer is this is the recreational consumer. So we lost the recreational consumer in the mid-2000s. Bike price points went up. We lost that consumer. What we're really getting back is that person who wanted the bike, not because they were a passionate cyclist and they wanted to go out and ride it for 3 hours on a Saturday morning. It's somebody who wants a bicycle to go around the block, or to go to the store, or to do some recreation on. And if we as retailers are not getting that consumer, we've just lost the $500 hybrid sale, the $600 hardtail mountain bike sale. All of those bikes that we were selling to the recreational consumer are being replaced by e-bike sales. That's the customer who is buying these, and that's the one we have to stay focused on attracting into our stores.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. I see an attendee has his hand up, Chad Picard.
Yes, good afternoon. I think one of the, you know, when talking about community, and any sort of potential customer, if someone is not educating them, there's going to be a vacuum. They're going to probably seek out education from places that aren't the authority. It might just be a well-placed Google ad. It might be just a very wordsmithed article or Google ad or fake type article, and customers are going to buy what they think is the right feature. They're going to buy wattage. They're going to buy length of, or how long it takes to charge it, and how far they can go, which we know those specs aren't the whole story. In fact, they'll even look at throttle or no throttle, because that's something they can see and feel and understand because of a motorcycle. And I challenge a lot of shops to actually put a customer on a higher quality Class 1 e-bike and have them feel the difference between throttle and no throttle. And oftentimes they pick that no throttle. But as far as engaging communities with e-bikes, I mean, every opportunity you get, every bike store has an opportunity to sell an e-bike or to educate at the very least about an e-bike. Do demos, as I think Richard said earlier, just get people on bikes, connect with AARP, connect with, Active Generations group, community education classes. When I owned my bike stores, where I connected was actually through city council and through different bike advocacy organizations, and helped them actually navigate what e-bikes are and how to create laws and ordinances that not only protect the riders, but also those that are maybe more vulnerable about the e-bike riders. But both vendors and retailers need to work together to create that education, so that when a customer chooses an e-bike, they choose a safe e-bike that's going to have the support on the back end it needs for the customer's success. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Chad. And Pat from Wheelworks has been posting in the chat as well about attending events that are not bike specific. She sold a couple e-bikes to a gentleman at a wine tasting. We've heard of retailers going to RV shows. So lots of great ideas circulating here. Larry, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. So, aging baby boomers were sort of the first, demographic that really embraced e-bikes, but it's gotten so much broader than that. And, I just really enjoy when I see folks in my own neighborhood replacing car trips on e-bikes. And cargo bikes is a category that can really open the door to a unique category. And I'll focus on sort of personal use and then commercial use. But from a personal use perspective, I live in an area that's pretty hilly, and there's a lot of schools, both public and private. And along with that is a very long carpool drop-off line where people wait in line in their cars to drop off their kids. And I've had a lot of neighbors that have embraced a long-tail cargo bike that they can carry 2 children on and drop them off in a real efficient manner and go on about their day. And they're utilizing the bike to go grocery shopping. And this discovery that it can be more efficient is really key. So pitching e-bikes, cargo bikes in particular, to parents that have young children attending school that you can carry on a cargo bike is an awesome category. And then I think, just scratching the surface here, and I think Dawn might be able to comment on this. You go to a city like New York that's incredibly congested, and you get a lot of, service providers. They could be carpenters, electricians, plumbers, food service delivery people that are utilizing cargo bikes to replace, trucks, be a panel truck or a van in a really congested environment that, they're getting ticketed because they can't find parking. It's an ideal replacement. So there's a lot of opportunities, tons of upside, I believe, in the cargo bike space.
Thank you so much, Larry. I definitely enjoy a cargo bike. And when we take our trip to the market, people ask questions about it all the time. So it's definitely one of those opportunities. And Dawn, as Larry suggested, you might have some ideas, and I see your hand up as well.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo the points about, you know, parents as an opportunity. You know, they say people make a lot of new purchases in these like transition moments of their lives when they move, when they become parents, when their children start school. So, but I think if someone hasn't ridden a bike much or in a very long time, it's a little intimidating. So I feel like outreach and education to those populations has a really, could have a really high return. And it's the kind of things, you know, much as the parents are maybe managing that, the school drop off line, and we don't have that in where I live, but I've heard about it. You know, the school is too, right? The school shares the motivation to get people out of those cars congesting the road, so they may be good partners for reaching the parents. So on the flip side, though, I guess my plea is a market that I don't want the bike industry and the e-bike industry to go after is people who actually want motorcycles. I see marketing about how fast they are, about how powerful they are. Zoom, zoom, feel the power. And that is like the kind of mentality and marketing that is driving some of the bikelash that we're experiencing, at least in cities where people are lumping e-bikes in with mopeds and motorcycles and looking to regulate them like they regulate mopeds and motorcycles with licensing, registration, insurance requirements. So although it may be tempting to use those as selling points to sell e-bikes, the type of behavior and culture and even type of rider that they may attract, I think is a loser in the long run. So emphasizing the ease, emphasizing that, you know, I didn't have to sweat, I didn't have to sit in traffic, I didn't have to find a place to park, like emphasizing the ease of an e-bike as opposed to like this raw power, like it's a car commercial or something, I think is the winner in the long run, as far as showing people the real value isn't that you could go like, how often, at least in an urban environment, can you go 28 miles an hour at a sustained speed anyway, right? It's more results in sort of like erratic and jumpy behavior. So that's sort of my plea is don't go after people who want a motorcycle and want to speed around, go after people who want an easy way to get around.
Thank you, Dawn. And definitely, this is a great opportunity to put that plea out there. I appreciate it so much. A couple more hands up. I see Chaz Pope. Would you like to go ahead and add to the conversation? There you go.
Oh, hey guys. A little bit late getting to the party today. Hey, listen, I'm here in Lacey, Washington. This is more like a testimony. So if I get a little long-winded, somebody raise your hand and stop me. I'm a retired military guy. I was in Europe. That's when I got exposed to e-bikes. I've ridden bikes all my life. The Europeans have been riding e-bikes and basically the rest of the world long before we did. I got here in Washington State 10 years ago. And I went to bike shops. I saw a niche, right? Because cycling is pretty prominent here in Washington, Pacific Northwest area. I turned around and went to bike shops initially. And he says, no, that's cheating, blah, 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 on and on and on. And I kind of got my talking points down, and I would go inside and talk to the owner and say, hey, listen, what demographic has the majority of disposable income? Smart ones would say baby boomers. And I say, well, what do you have in your shop that the baby boomer can buy? I'm talking about the masses, right? And that was kind of my introduction into it. Now, like I said, it's been 10 years and just about every shop, obviously they have them now. There's my customer base, obviously by my name, are pretty much baby boomers. And I stress the point that you actually get more of a workout on an e-bike than you do a regular bike. And I explained to them, we'll go for a ride. All my bikes are class 2s. There's I explained to him, I says, you know, on a regular bike, once you've exhausted your oxygen in your legs or your cardio, you're done. With an e-bike, you can readjust your torque, you can readjust your gears, So you take the loads off and you constantly keep the cardio going, because we do have some respectable hills here in Washington State. And I take them for a ride, and I give them a hard ride, you know, and we'll go, I have a 2-mile track, I have a 10-mile track, and I got a 3 miles through the woods track that I take people rides on, and it works out really good. That's how I got started in this. So the maintenance size, obviously, there are different companies that I represent that I do more maintenance on than I do others. One of my little niches is that a lot of shops, if they take a bike, if a customer takes a bike that's not from their shop, they won't work on them. I understand it. I get it. There's that liability factor. There's that one person is going to say, fix my flat tire, turn around as they pick it up, fix the flat tire, and say, well, my motor's not working now. What did you do with my bike? Fix my bike, right? Those people are out there. I've been fortunate. I haven't had that. So I do work on a variety of bikes. I really don't turn anybody down, and then I'll troubleshoot with the bike. But since there's so many different bikes now, and it's constantly growing, you know, people would turn around and say, well, you know, I can get a bike on eBay for $500. And I said, well, you'll get what you'll pay for too. So I'm a strong advocate to go to a shop and actually get on a bike, go for the rides, do the comparisons, inform the consumer the difference between a torque sensor and a cadence, a class 1, class 2, class 3. In Washington State, they've actually recently passed a law, and Governor Inslee has signed a bill that gives refunds for people who buy e-bikes. And the problem is no one can find out where the paperwork is at. I go to, because I'm right here in Olympia, I go down to the State House and no one says, yeah, it's passed, but we can't find where the paperwork is at that people can process it. So the minimum they'll get is $300. Depending on their income, they can get $1,200 reimbursed through the state of Washington. I think there's 11 states right now that's doing programs like that. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I appreciate the conversations and listen to different people's perspectives and stuff. If anybody's got any questions for me, or if I can help out in any way, please let me know. Thanks.
Chaz, thank you so much for adding to the conversation and for attending. And I really appreciate you sharing with the group. Let's do one more panel member on this topic. Michael, I see your hand up. Are you still with us? There you are.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on something that Don said about the scooter and motorcycle. When I was at the CABDA show, I did drive into New York and Brooklyn, and I wanted to see what it was like walking those streets for e-bikes. And I got a good taste of what's out there. And I did see scooters with plates on them, and I heard the exhaust, and then I saw scooters with no plates on them and driving around, weaving between traffic. And the motorcycle style is more of an issue in Canada too. It's the marketing of them. And that was never the intention of an electric bike program, whether it be, you know, in the US or Canada. It's more distributors kind of pushing the limits, right? And they kind of, in Canada, you can have like a motorcycle style, or in Ontario where I am, with pedals on it, and it looks like a ninja sport bike. And that was never the intention of electric bikes, but distributors and industry keeps pushing. And the type of person, the demographic that's driving that is not a boomer. Definitely, it's a younger, they want a bike that looks like it's going fast without moving type of bike. Larry touched on cargo bikes. I have a cargo bike that I use to pick up my 7 and 11-year-old. And as soon as I pull up to the school, all the parents that are picking up their kids are asking me, where did you get this? And where could I get one? And that's great. I don't have to drive. I don't have to be stuck in traffic here. And I tell them, you know, I bring some business cards with me. And I say, we have them at our shop. And you know, you can park your car at home, and it's a much better experience for your kids to be in the sunshine. It's a lot less stressful trying to find parking. So Larry definitely hit the nail on the head with the cargo. The cargo segment is a big growing segment across North America. And Chaz said something about, you know, you'll get customers in 15 years. I got a lot of customers that we fixed their bike as simple as a brake lever or something and a quick component change, and now their bike doesn't work and they're blaming us. And it's certainly not us. But what I like to do is I always get the keys from the customer and turn their bike on in front of them and twist the throttle or pedal assist it before we even start working on it. If it's like a flat tire, This way, before we get it in our shop, we can see that it is working. And you kind of know the bikes that are beat up, which ones to do it on as an owner. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Michael. Lots of great ideas here circulating, lots of great reminders and different ways to look at things. I appreciate everyone leading their insight to the 4 topics today. I will now turn it over to Jay Townley to offer a summary on the topics covered today. Jay?
It's like trying to summarize the output from a fire hose at this point.
There's so much.
Yeah. On the first question, e-bike industry shifts from lithium ion. I thought that was a superb presentation. And Ed Benjamin's comments, well taken. And then the add-on from my partner, Mike Fritz, who's a smart one in our group, not only endorsing what Ed had to say, but I think more importantly, the research, which he was sharing with me earlier this morning from Exponent, I believe is the name of the lab. And the report that issued from that, and the fact that we've now got a better handle, because we've talked to many people on the panel about blankets and bags, and we're finding out from actual research. And again, get this report. Michael's posting it. It'll give you up-to-date information as to perhaps we need to focus more on what has also just been published in the past week, which those of us that follow this very closely are aware of, is potting, which is the process of putting the resin into the battery pack in order to totally cover all of the cells. Seems to be from this research a much better way to go to begin to prevent the tragedies we're seeing, particularly with the low-cost batteries in New York. Now, it doesn't solve the New York problem, but it does give us hope relative to moving forward, with the understanding that that's not going to come near term, as Ed and Mike have pointed out, from anything that's coming out of the battery industry. And, you know, at this point, with all due respect to Michael's presentation, which I thought also was excellent, the sodium batteries, the solid state batteries have all been discussed. They're being worked on, but there's not enough movement. There's not enough manufacturing capability. There's not enough R&D being done yet. And we're 3 to 5 years away from the nearest possible solutions. So we're going to have to do what we can relative to lithium-ion batteries and improving them. And more importantly, as Kanul said from Bosch, testing and certification, effective testing, effective certification, I think are the keys that have already been dealt with by the NBDA. If I go back and take a quick look at the NBDA e-bike lithium-ion battery pack safe storage, use, and care protocols that were published in December 26th of 2023. Please request a copy of that from Heather. That gives you 15 steps, starting with the fact that only source, store, charge, and sell lithium-ion battery packs that have been tested and certified by a nationally recognized test laboratory, or a NERDL. And I don't want to start a controversy on that now, but you can certainly email me about that. For e-bikes, you certainly want certification to UL 20, to batteries for 2271, to e-bikes to UL 2849. But I do think that what we've done in addressing this conversation is, point out, and I'm going on a bit long here because I think this is the most important issue. We pointed out that the solution is not going to be in battery technology in the near term, but we're moving towards solutions like the potting process that we can now test and begin to look at that give us near-term solutions with the existing technology and the existing batteries. So there's still a lot of questions there, as Mike said, but that came out of today's panel. I think also, Michael, is probably brand new to many people who haven't seen the research yet, and will as you post it. Second question, and I apologize for going on such length with the first one. Competing on quality, IBDs versus the low-cost e-bikes. My thanks to Cisco for that question. I think the panel handled this very well. Richard, very good to hear your comments. Also Larry Peasy. the bottom line here, folks, is, as Richard has pointed out, we need government and industry to move forward together endorsing standards, in this case, UL 2849. We've got a standard. We've got CPSC moving forward with development of a mandatory standard without going in and belaboring the detail of that. But the competition relative to quality IBDs versus the low-cost e-bikes is, let's do what we can relative to cutting off the sources of the low-cost e-bikes and moving as expeditiously as we can as a body, as specialty bicycle retailers, working with our suppliers and with our friends in various aspects of government to make sure that we are doing everything we can to bring forward, repeating from the first topic, testing, certification to UL 2849 for complete e-bikes, 2271 for batteries, and making sure that we work very hard on trying to purge those bad battery packs from the environment where they're out there in the hands of consumers. If I missed anything, and Brian, I apologize, I didn't go into your in-store comments, which I thought were also very telling on this topic. If I've missed everything, there will be a more detailed summary that will be provided by Heather on this topic, but please email me. Third question, IBD support, challenges, and solutions for e-bikes. Again, I thought a very, very good discussion led by Michael at SEBA. This boils down to, I think, if I can steal from Michael's presentation, but from the other speakers, robust service. Robust service on the part of especially bicycle retailers. It's missing. It's a component that needs to be added. We've got on the call and making presentations 2 sources of training, true training relative to e-bikes and e-bike systems. We need to work on more. We need to work on how we can get more training into the system. And we need to get more dealers completely understanding that e-bikes are the future. There's an editorial comment that Rick Vosper just posted on Bicycle Retail and Industry News yesterday that goes to this issue. It is the point that e-bikes are rising up now. They are an important factor in our business. They need to be looked at very carefully, and we need to make sure as an industry that we're moving forward with testing and certification as a foundation of being able to sell our services and the ability to service products to the consumer. Here again, I want to be mindful of time. If you got any more that you want to add to that, certainly email me. You'll see what we do in completing the notes. The last and fourth point I've got is engaging communities with e-bikes. Extremely important, just as important as engaging communities with bicycles. And in fact, I think from a mindset standpoint, what we've got to get across here and what came out of this conversation, and thank you, Dawn, for the comment about the motorcycles or that mentality, is in the bicycle world, we include class 1 and class 2. They are by definition from CPSC inclusive of bicycles as we define them. And there is the open question, how will we regulate so-called class 3? Well, I think Dawn is giving us good guidelines here as a riding consumer. And also, Michael hit on a point that it was never the intention of e-bikes from the very beginning to become electric motorcycles. And I think we have to be very, very mindful of the fact that we have to look at bicycles. We have to look at the definition of bicycle, see what's included as a bicycle, and what the ramifications are of putting human beings on bikes that can exceed 20 miles an hour. And if they can, I think we have to also think very seriously about making sure that they are regulated separately in some way, shape, or form. So with that said, please feel free to criticize anything that I haven't covered in the time I've got. Heather, if there's anything I missed, let me know. But there will be far more detailed notes on each one of these points that Heather will be passing on to the panel in short order.
Thank you very much, Jay. Again, I sincerely appreciate the many panel members who have volunteered their time to share their expertise, to join in the conversation. To our attendees today, if you were in and out throughout the presentation, we will have a recording on our YouTube channel. The next event is scheduled for Tuesday, June 11th. We will begin soliciting topics for that in May. At any point, please reach out to the NBDA for anything we can do to support. If you'd like to get in touch with any of our panel members, this is an opportunity for us to truly work united as an industry and just talk through these challenges so we can all head in a similar direction. I wish everyone a ton of success. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. And again, thank you, panel members. Extremely, extremely grateful for you.